You have probably never heard of this game called Stories Untold, a game that had so much potential to be good with its unique and refreshing gameplay, however fell short with its delivery. Today, I'm going to be talking about Stories Untold. Before I start with this video, I want to sincerely thank everyone that watched and supported my previous video, Why VHS Horror Games Work. I really never thought that so many people would watch it and actually enjoy it, as it is sitting at 2,500 views and almost 200 likes, which is insane. Thank you so much, all of you. By the way, there is going to be spoilers for this game, so if you haven't played it yet, I really suggest you go buy it and play it, as it's a short but enjoyable adventure. Alright, now let's get back to the video. Stories Untold was released on February 27th, 2017 by the company No Code. No Code is a really small company that only has 3 full-time developers, but somehow still managed to make this game in 6 months, which is really impressive for the quality of the game. The game only sold around 150,000 copies worldwide, which is low compared to the quality of the game. However, the game has a lot of flaws, so let's move to the story and gameplay and what I think of them. The game has 4 different episodes/chapters. Each is a different adventure and each has different gameplay mechanics. Let's start with the first episode, The House Abandoned. You start the episode by sitting in front of an old vintage computer with a lamp being the only light source lighting up the background. In the background, there are some photos of kids, a phone on the wall, a mug, and a clock on top of the computer. The computer jumps to life and starts to create an image, layer by layer, of the game that you're going to play, The House Abandoned. You quickly realize that this is not any regular FPS game, but a text adventure, which matches the 80s aesthetic the game is creating. The game starts with you pulling up to your old family holiday house. In the glove box of the car is a letter from your dad, reminding you that you have to start the generator in order for there to be power. One thing that I really appreciate in this game is the amount of detail and atmosphere. The devs created a very accurate and immersive environment of the 80s in this game, adding things like overlapping your IRL keyboard sounds with an old 80s keyboard. It makes it more enjoyable to play. Anyways, once you have done this, you make your way through the house that is filled with your childhood memories. While playing, you will notice that to do certain actions, you will need very specific commands. For example, in some areas typing exit room would work, but in the other area you would have to type leave the room. This gets very annoying after some time, and I had to use a guide to help me in certain areas, as I needed the exact command to leave or do something. Once upstairs, you step into your old bedroom. On the desk, a present wrapped in paper. You unwrap it and see that it's your old Futuro 128K plus 2 computer, with the same copy of The House Abandoned. You set everything up, and right as you plug the power cord in, the power goes out. Not in The House Abandoned game, but in real life. A few moments later, the power to the computer comes back on, but this time, everything is different. The game is starting to load, however, there is "Get Out" written all over the cover. You continue playing the game, but see that the protagonist is not so excited and thrilled to be revisiting this place. He even says there is no love here, after seeing the state of the house. He goes and powers on the generator. This returns power to us, and now we see that the children's eyes on the pictures are crossed out and the timer is reset. As you enter the house in-game, you hear a sound behind you. Everything is the same as before. However, this time, everything is decayed. The windows are broken, there are stains everywhere, and there is an unbearable stench that covers the house. As you flip the light switch, the clock in the real world starts blaring. In the game, the person acknowledges that there is something beeping upstairs. There is someone in the house. This is the first horror that you see in this game. The game is much tenser because you can't just stand up and go look what's happening downstairs. You are stuck. You have to keep playing. You continue exploring the rotted house until you make it to your old bedroom. As you unlock the door in-game, a beam of red light surrounds the room in the real world. Now it is clear. The actions inside the text adventure are mirrored in real life. You stand behind yourself and are forced to write, "It was all my fault," repeatedly until the computer says, "Finally," and the chapter ends. When I finished this chapter the first time I played this game, my mouth was sitting below me on the floor. It's a very shocking ending that was perfectly executed. Sadly, this is the best chapter out of the 4. It's only downhill from here. Moving on to the second episode, the lab conduct. You start the chapter by sitting in a lab while a person talks over the speakers. The unknown person tells us that in the testing chamber, artifact 23 will be tested on. This artifact was found at a crash site. The setting is a very big change from the first episode and sitting in a bedroom playing a video game on a computer, which confused me while I was playing. Only after the game ends will you realize that all of these episodes are connected. Once you power on all of the machinery, you see that this artifact is a heart, an animal heart. You proceed to follow all of the given instructions on what to do with this heart, and you get it beating. You are instructed by the assistant to increase the frequency of the machines. As you increase it, you clearly see that the heart starts to beat faster and faster. Once you increase it to 1000 megahertz, the heart explodes, which reveals some sort of spherical object sitting in the chamber. The assistant says that this is all according to plan and that you should relax and get ready for the next steps. Next, the assistant directs you to drill the object. While drilling it, the power blows out. The computer is the only thing still working. The computer updated task says that you have to make contact with the object. As you open the test chamber, a GLaDOS knockoff flies out and attaches himself to you by casting a beam of light directly into your eyes.
Bruh.
This makes the player fall over and start spilling blood on the ground, which means that this GLaDOS bitch is taking our blood. The assistant says that we are now a proxy with a connection to the entity's inner core, whatever the fuck that means. The sphere then communicates its memories through another text adventure game to help us discover what happened to it. In the text adventure, the game details the character waking up after having crashed onto a planet. Escaping a mysterious hazardous capsule, an army of people is standing, visible only as silhouettes. One silhouette approaches the player. The story then jumps to the character laying on a bed with wires attached to his chest after being tortured. They pull out the wires, setting off an alarm in-game, mirroring the environment.
What just happened? What's that alarm? There's been a disconnection in quarantine lab 15.
Now we see a pattern. In every episode, we are mirroring what's happening in the game and in real life. As we leave the room, over the speakers, the assistant says that Specimen 20 has left Lab 15. It's on the move. We are the specimen. The assistant then realizes that what they are watching, us playing, is not a memory, but what's happening right now, and begs us to stop what we are doing. Us being a boss-ass bitch, continue to play the game. We enter a new room and soon find out that we are the host and basically control GLaDOS. We solve this hieroglyph puzzle which makes the sphere disconnect from us and spawns a shit ton of GLaDOSes. That's how episode 2 ends. I didn't like this episode at all because it was just confusing as shit in what was happening, and I didn't like the sci-fi aspect of it. It really didn't even connect to the 80s aesthetic the whole game was going for. It was just kind of a disconnect from the rest of the episodes. If I wanna fuck around with GLaDOS, I'ma just go play Portal. I don't really have anything much to say about this chapter, so let's go to the third chapter, the station process. The player is seated at a desk in an Antarctic monitoring station in Greenland. On the desk, there are two-way radio, a computer, and a microfiche reader. I'm praying to God that I said that correctly. The game is a series of puzzles using the radio and microfilm reader to determine codes for various radio frequencies. The puzzles/codes are provided by several other nearby stations who communicate with you and each other, but he can only complete his tasks as the microphone is broken. While mindlessly completing these puzzles, the operators talking with us say that we have to lock all of our doors in the cabin as they are here. While you are solving puzzles again, a loud thud comes from the roof of your cabin, and it sounds like something is being dragged from one side to the other. One of the operators says that they are at his cabin too. Later, one of the operators says that those things took out one of the stations. It's very creepy seeing and hearing how everyone around you is being killed off, knowing that you are going to be next. While trying to solve one of the puzzles, you are then ordered to realign the transmitter outside, which was moved by the wind, at which point you are knocked over and dragged outside. You get up, walk a bit, and see that you are playing in first person. Very cool. You go and fix the transmitter. While you are walking back, the other stations command you to wake up and tell them what happened. All this time, you still don't know how do these creatures look or what they even are. The obscurity of this evil makes you sit on the edge of your seat and wait for it to attack, as you can't predict what will happen. The station itself also seems to be connected to a vine stretching into the sky. For a split second, you can see that the interior is the computer desk from the house abandoned, and the episode ends. This is a way better episode than the second one, as there is way more tension. Tension when you are walking outside in the windstorm, not being able to see any incoming danger, feeling that impending doom, hearing all of the operators get picked off one by one. It's a solid episode. Now we move on to the grand finale, the conclusion, the last session. The episode starts with the game's opening sequence, thereafter paused as the camera pulls back to reveal it is playing on a television. Dr. Alexander takes the player to an empty room for a session that's being recorded on a cassette recorder. He is recovering from a 2-week coma following an accident, according to Alexander, and the session is aimed at recovering his memories of the events surrounding the accident. In the previous 3 sessions, James had merged his memories with fantasy, all terminated early due to panic. The sphere from the lab conduct appears and transports him to the Arctic station. The microfilm now displays the police report. You, James, was in a car crash with his sister, Jennifer, trapped and critically injured. The other driver, Charles Hennings, a retired police officer, was killed, smelling of alcohol, with an empty bottle found in a passenger seat. After completing a puzzle, a friend of Hennings, through a message, claims he never talked about alcohol and accuses you of irresponsibility.
It's not like it, at all. I've worked with Officer Hennings for 6 years and not once have we even talked about alcohol. Drunk driving. He was a father, a husband. He was fine. No way he caused this. It's him, this Haitian guy. He's got something to hide.
The game then switches to the laboratory, where the interactions with the machine mirror a life-saving operation on yourself in the emergency room, where you arrive with no pulse. Following the ER doctor's orders, you restart your heart, reliving a hemorrhage by drilling into your head. He wakes at the computer desk to play The House Abandoned, this time detailing the events prior to and during the crash. At the house, full of people due to a New Year's party, James, who is said to leave on a long trip, finds a gift bottle of whiskey from his father and gets drunk from it. He is then asked by his unsuspecting Jennifer to drive her home. James has a premonition of her covered in blood, with the Futuro projecting her bloodied face in a body bag, before having another premonition showing his mother at the hospital being told that Jennifer is dead, but that James is alive, but her mother is saying she doesn't want to see him. On the road, Jennifer realizes that James is drunk, but can't convince him to pull over, and they crash into oncoming traffic. Afraid of going to jail and ruining his reputation, he pours some of the whiskey he received from his father onto Hennings, the police officer, and places the bottle in Hennings's car. The police officers arrive as he approaches the silhouette of one. The sphere then transports you back to the hospital, with the voice of Jen berating you on your behavior and actions, saying that he has to admit his guilt.
It was all your fault. I know what you did. How you left me there to protect yourself. Planting evidence on some poor man. You went headfirst into that officer and you wrecked all of our lives. And then you couldn't even take responsibility.
Walking back into the room, James pushes stop on the tape recorder, per Alexander's orders. Alexander says he'll pass on the information to the police, and James then returns to watching stories untold on television. That's how the game ends. The ending is very shocking, however, the previous 3 episodes had no signs or visible connections to each other, which made the gameplay feel like you're just doing random tasks, which isn't very fun. They should have focused more on delivering the message. You only start to connect the points and start to see the hints after you finish the game, while it should have been done while you are playing. I also think that if the game was not set in the 80s, it wouldn't have been as interesting and wouldn't have had that charm. The aesthetic really adds a lot to the enjoyability of the game. Maybe because I'm a zoomer and the 80s are overglorified in today's media. Maybe. Now a couple of nice words. The game used a really unique style and way to tell a story. Multiple forms and types of gameplay made the game less repetitive. If the whole game would have been a text adventure, I would have been bored and would have lost interest real fast. I also really liked that there was no jump scares, only psychological horror. You waiting for the creature to grab you away in the station process, or for the person behind you to do something in the house abandoned. The tension and immersion were executed perfectly. In conclusion, they could have done so much more with this unique style of gameplay. However, the message and ending fall short. They could have added more obvious hints to uncover what am I doing all of these random tasks for. I also really didn't like the cliche ending that everything was happening in a dream and that none of this was real. It's a very lazy way to finish this game. I agree with the rating that the critics give it. It's very unique, however, has much to be desired. Please comment down below if you enjoyed this video and how I could improve my future videos. Thank you so much for watching.